Good morning and welcome to Wake Up to Broker Up with Mark, episode number 12 for 2025. Well, last week I talked about designated agency and not dual agency. And of course, I promised to elaborate more this week about that. And I've got here in my hand the F101 Exclusive Seller Brokerage Engagement Agreement, page 2 of 10, which is item A6, agency and brokerage. And it says the following are types of agency relationships not offered by broker. And then it says seller agency, buyer agency, designated agency, dual agency, sub-agency, tenant agency, and landlord agency. And in general, I'm sure people are going to freak out when I say this, the only one of those that we don't offer is sub-agency. No one that I'm aware of has offered sub-agency since BRETTA became a thing way back when. Sub-agency meant that you were working for one party or the other, as was somebody else, as a sub-agent. It's even hard to explain, which is why it doesn't exist anymore. So that's on page 2 of 10 of the Exclusive Seller Brokerage Engagement Agreement, F101 A6A, which has those. And for some reason, some of you don't check anything on there. May or may not be an issue. But 6B says if broker offers dual agency of one of its agency relationships above, seller does or does not consent to broker acting in a dual agent capacity. And the interesting thing is, you don't check one of those either, which means that you're not disclosing to the seller whether the seller is going to be consenting to dual agency or not. That's the problem. Now, I'm shifting gears. I'm going to the F110 Exclusive Buyer Brokerage Engagement Agreement, page 1 of 8, and A3A talks about agency and what we offer. Again, sub-agency we don't offer. The other ones we do. And then B is whether the buyer consents to dual agency or doesn't consent to dual agency. That needs to be checked. The buyer, what it does is it forcing you, just like with the seller, to have a conversation with the person you're going to represent and determine whether they want you to practice dual agency or they don't. Hear this one loud and clear, because I haven't trumpeted it enough, because it hasn't been an issue for a long time that I'm aware of, although apparently maybe it was, and that is there's only one real time where you might be a dual agent. One real time. And here's that scenario. You have a listing, an assigned listing agreement with the seller, and you have a buyer who wants to buy that listing, and simultaneously to that, not while you don't sign them up just right now, that buyer wants to buy your listing. Then by virtue of both of those documents, a listing agreement and a buyer brokerage agreement, you are in fact a dual agency. Now, they will have to agree to that, but I'm telling you, the typical time that happens is you already have a listing and the buyer comes unrepresented, and for some reason, people sign them up as a client using a buyer brokerage agreement. I suspect that the reason is compensation, but I don't want to indict anybody, because your compensation should be your compensation based on the listing agreement, and you shouldn't have to sign the buyer up to get that compensation. So this will probably spark all kinds of conversation, and that's a good thing, so that we can talk about it more in depth. But again, when you've got a listing and another Atlanta Communities person within your office or within the company brings a buyer to your property, then you are designated agents, not dual agents. And make sure that you're checking the appropriate blocks as designated agents on the purchase and sale agreement. If you have questions, respond to the email. Send me an email, mark@atlantacommunities.net. I'm happy to answer them, as are your brokers and the rest of the team. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your weekend. This is a lot to think about. I know that. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.